that I can look at?
That our practice.
I asked earlier.
Just hold on. Can we just allow our presenter to finish and answer the question, and then we'll go to the next question.
Suggest that our current practice is effectively identifying and meeting the needs of Maori. There's two stages here. There's a pre-qualifying stage that is around the criteria, but then in terms of placing tenants, there's a further professional assessment that identifies priority needs from the waiting list. Now, we believe it's a successful service at the moment. Absolutely no intention of winding back on that. In fact, we want to build on that success. And there's a number of areas through the partnership, and working in partnership with members of the IMSB and others, we can strengthen the service we provide to Maori.
It's good, and I'm not doubting the good intentions, but often good intentions can miss things too, and you seem to have a bit of an analysis around the impact of Māori generally, and it'd be really helpful for us to view those at some point.
Yeah. So through the chair, I think one of the opportunities here, we tend to look at this service in terms of demographics, in terms of population numbers, in terms of trends. We're actually doing some work at the moment which gets down to an individual level, aims to understand at a sort of journey mapping level who our tenants are and how they find themselves in that situation. So I understand through conversation with advisors of the IMSB that actually the work we're doing, there's some synergy between the work we're doing and the Life Stages initiative of the IMSB, and I think there's a real opportunity there to build on current practice and strengthen that practice.
Absolutely, that's positive. My point was making it could be needs-based, it could be age-based. Age-based was the criteria that we're looking at today.
Yep.
Thanks.
Cool. Okay. Councillor Walker.
Sure. Just got a few questions. First off, my question is around the numbers. It's pretty clear that there's an outstanding demand, that we've got people on a waiting list, and I'm assuming it's probably going up.
Sorry, Councillor Walker, I
know
that you're polite, reaching over to the presenters. We just need to hear you. Thank you.
Sure. So I have a question around what the trend is. The other issue that I've got goes to why we are moving away from some of the other criteria that I would have thought were significant. And I'm talking about criteria other than just superannuation. For example, the other councils in the past had sickness, invalid, war pension. They were a number of categories in addition to superannuation. So I'm just trying to get a handle on why just superannuation. Is it a reason around some form of guaranteed income? In which case, why aren't those other categories valid? Or is it something to do with some form of age to limit the numbers? But then my question around that is, should we be doing that? Because there may be people that are worthy who are 60, who may have limited life expectancy, particularly amongst Māori, who would otherwise be discriminated against. So have some questions around that.
Certainly. We've aligned the age-related criteria to access to super, not having super. So if somebody has a different form of pension, that is absolutely fine. It is just that they have the criteria to access superannuation. The reason we have attached it to superannuation and the ability to access that is that covers off a lot of criteria where council itself would not need to do the due diligence, because that would be done externally to council through central government. That includes such thing as residency in New Zealand and also income levels. In terms of moving the age from 60 to 65, when these units were first built in the 50s and 60s, they were viewed as being pensioner housing, and there has been a long-term allocation at the age 60. What we do know is between 1995, so 20 years ago, to now, there has been an increased life expectancy for people of an average of 5 years across all ethnicities. So we do know that that population is ageing. And so we have allocated 65 as the access to what would be the pension now, which is superannuation.
Just have a further question, Madam Chair. So just going back to the issue of someone that's an invalid or they're on a sickness benefit or a pension, but they're not the age of superannuation, 65, wouldn't that person really be someone in need that we should be supporting type of accommodation,
So
even if they're 60?
Through Madam Chair, there are a variety of providers who do provide specialised support for invalids and people who have long-term health issues. Council housing is very limited in the amount of housing it delivers currently, and we do know that the ageing population is growing much, much larger in Auckland. In fact, it's doubling between 2006 and 2031. So there is a growing population of age-related need, and we would recommend changing the age to 65.
Yeah, I mean, through you, Madam Chair, I mean, I understand that, but I don't really have information in here about the needs of those who are invalids or sick or on a war pension, and just what they can avail themselves elsewhere. That's not apparent in this report, when clearly this report is discriminating against them because it's changing the age and those criteria.
Through Madam Chair, I'm happy to provide a list of the specialist support services and housing that's available for disability and sickness-related housing in Auckland as well. So I'm happy to provide that through.
And war pensions?
Thank you, Councillor. We've got Councillor Filipaina, but just before we go to Councillor Filipaina, I'm just having a look at the amendment, and I'm just going to ask for a little bit of clarification around the waiting list as at 31st of December. If it was waiting list today, that's a little bit different from waiting list
We could get 200
of
people apply.
with another couple of months to go. I just need a little bit of clarification on what that may mean, because I think most of us are pretty comfortable with saying the waiting list as of now,
Yeah.
but today's date, it should be today's date. Okay, sorry, I just thought that might have been a miss. It was today's, I think it was meant to be today's date. There's been a little bit of work done on this amendment
better.
in the last little while. Okay, all right, you don't need to respond to that. We'll go to Councillor Filipaina.
Thank you, Chair, and that was one of the questions I was going to ask around the date of the waiting list, because obviously 37 over 50% of the 60 people who will be affected by this change are in the south. So at least that definitely support the waiting list. My question is, and Kevin, when you mentioned 4%, 8%, 11% Māori, my issue with the stats, and it's always been an issue, is you may be applying it across the region. But when you get into specific areas like the south and like Otara Papatoetoe, like Manurewa, those figures are somewhat higher depending on the population. So you may end up saying 11%, but some of that 37 that is affected out the south may be quite high for Māori and Pacific, because as the attachment that you have here states, also a lot of our European community. So my concern about this, through you, Chair, is moving forward post this criteria. How much work are we doing, and it's really aligned from what Leanne sort of started, how much work are we going to do for the people that will be affected post 12th of November? You know, changing from 65 to 60, how, you know, what work are we going to do? I've read the report and it's mentioning that we're talking to other agencies around it, but if we currently have 60 across our region, I can see that number increasing, and as Councillor Webster said, you know, we may end up getting 200 if we stayed with 31st of December. we may actually get a hell of a lot more that we personally, through Auckland Council, will be affecting. And I have no doubt it will. So what will we as council, and I'm either looking to my right or to my left, what work will we be doing to ensure that those people that will be missing out, and there will be hundreds, guarantee, because of the age, what are we doing to assist those so they don't fall between the cracks? No, left or right, I don't.
I can speak to that. Through you, Madam Chair. Our staff currently work very, very closely with our tenants. As you know, Councillor Filipina, we also work with our waiting list. We do go back to the waiting list applicants consistently to check their circumstances. So if their circumstances change or become more dire or more urgently in need, they will move up the waiting list because their housing need will become more of a priority. Where we've got those existing people on the waiting list, we will continue to do that with them. If we do not apply the criteria to the existing waiting list, then those people will not be affected. If we did apply it to the waiting list, of those potential 60 people who could be affected, we would work very closely with them and other housing providers, including Housing New Zealand, in those communities, which we do currently. We're currently sharing waiting lists with, for instance, Bays Community Housing Trust, where if there's somebody who's not of an urgent need to live alone, say for instance, we will actually look at something like Bays where they have large communal housing and then talk to those potential tenants to see if that would suit their needs, and then we work with Bays to put them onto their waiting list and move them into their housing. So we do have a very proactive approach to finding resources for people.
Through you, Chair, it's actually the ones that are going to miss out as a result of us, if it does get adopted.
Yes.
Those are the ones I'm concerned about, not the ones on the waiting list. It's the ones that will miss out.
Yeah. So,
That's where, what are we doing to capture those people that are going to miss out if this criteria gets adopted too? That's my concern. It's not about the existing ones. I know that there be work, but those that will miss out.
I think, Councillor, I understand the question and your advocacy on this and totally sympathise. The reality, we've got a waiting list. There are people missing out. We are a small percentage of the provision of older adult housing and community housing. You know, for the councils that held on to these, good on us. But we now need to work in partnership with other community providers. We need to get on and build houses so that we've got that social housing component of some of the ones that we're trying to support. And we need to get on and work with Housing New Zealand. So, you know, I think we can't over-egg our role in this. We need to make sure that we are managing our part in this as well as we can. And because we're now moving to work in partnership with our community housing providers, hence the need for the standardisation of the eligibility criteria. But, you know, it ain't going to make a difference to the fact that we've got a hell of a lot of people out there in Auckland who need good housing.
And Chair, you basically answered the question what I've asked of the staff, which is good. At least I know that we are still going to work with them. That's the whole point of my question, is what are we going to do for those that miss and fall out once this gets adopted? So at least I know that there's still currently going to be work.
We are on an hourly basis working with our community providers, our emergency housing providers, Housing New Zealand, trying to ramp up the provision of community and affordable housing in Auckland.
Because one day Councillor Callum Penrose will need that housing, so.
Yeah, just
Thank you, Chair.
half the committee should declare a conflict of interest here.
It's true. George and I
Any
have
other-
reached the criteria.
So
so
we're
we-
not even going to go
hair
there.
dye can only go for so long.
No other questions. I think we'll move to the recommendations. People are comfortable. I'm going to put the recommendations, noting the change to be. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you all, and thank you. I just want to acknowledge our team working on this. This is a really tough area to be working in, and Kat in particular, thank you for your advocacy for our older community. You're awesome.
Thank you, Chair.
So let's move on.